Brought some examples to show you. So I have this little vintage dress, and it does have a facing. Mostly vintage things do. So see how they did their facing? Very similar to the one, some of you did ones similar to this. I think Jacob's was kind of like this with the V, except they had a seam down the center, so I think that made it a little bit easier to get that sharp V. But so that's an example of a facing, didn't need lining. This is another super vintage, and it's got an interesting facing. So, oops. And the neck is very, very, gosh, that zipper only comes down that far. So here's the dress. Looks like this is kind of this like 1940s-ish style and late 40s facing like this. So it's like a deep V here, probably so that, you know, they went deep so it doesn't like flop out, you know, and then it goes all the way and it finishes the zipper, and just like that, and clean finishes here. So, you know, that's just some creative ways to do a facing. This little top just has a facing, so it looks like this. It's a shirt, like a silky bohemian looking shirt, like India, and it's facing, it just has a facing in the front. So it has this little front piece.
Like a Peter Pan color?
It's just finishing the front little scalloped edge here. And in the back, they did something like what you did with just a strip of fabric sewn to the back to reinforce it.
Bias.
It's probably bias. I don't know. Maybe not, because bias would stretch too much. So I would just do, I don't know, probably, I would just do length straight grain so it doesn't stretch out. But yeah, and then this piece has lining and a face. So this is a halter top with this like cowl, high cowl neck, and it's fully lined and faced. Oops. So here's the facing in the front with the same fabric, self fabric, like this, and it goes all the way around. This is kind of like Shu Hong's doing her neck, and then it attaches to the lining. So a lot of times facing is attached to the lining, and they use this like knit fabric for the lining. Interesting. So yeah, so that's just some different ideas, different ways that it helps, you know, to go when you go into the thrift stores or wherever you are, and just look around and browse and look in the clothes and see how they're made. Okay, so where were we on Monday? So on Monday I made this pattern, right? Made our halter, and here's my sketch for you guys. So you're gonna be turning in the same thing that you did today for the halter. Everything's the same process. And where's my back?
It's due next Wednesday too?
It'll be not due on Wednesday. Wednesday's the 3rd. I'm gonna make it due on the 8th. So we meet again on the 3rd, because Monday's a holiday. So this weekend's Labor Day weekend, Monday's a holiday, so I won't see you again until next Wednesday, and that's the 3rd. So next Wednesday we'll start the strapless. So our 3rd project with the contour sloper is a strapless style. So you guys get to do something strapless. It can have a strap if you want, but a thin strap, you know, like a spaghetti strap or something, but it's mainly a strapless top. And we'll start that on Wednesday the 3rd. You can turn in the halter project on Monday the 8th, and I will adjust that in Canvas for you guys. I didn't want you guys to just have to turn it in on Wednesday over the holiday and everything. So Is that clear for everyone? And there is a little bit of muslin left. I don't know if everyone picked up some muslin for the halter project. Okay, so we did our pattern, right? And we did our back, front and back. This is what we did in class. So now we need to make a facing for it and the strap. So my style is like this with these big long straps, because I thought that's kind of fun and kind of cool. You know, you just tie it around the back, kind of like, yeah, I just thought that would be fun. So my strap pattern, you know, looks something like this, big long piece. And my facing pattern is going to look something like this when it's finished. So we're going to do the facing first right now. So I'm going to draw my line down the center front. And again, if your design's a little bit different, if you're not doing this kind of similar design to what I have, then you know your facing is going to be different. You customize the facing to what you're designing. So I'm going to tape this down. So facings are after the pattern's complete. So you do your entire pattern, then you do the facing, because the facing gets based off your pattern. So you can't create the facing until you make your patterns, both the front and the back. So especially since I'm going to be making mine one single piece, so I'm actually going to tape this as well, because I don't want that seam. If I can eliminate sewing something, I will eliminate sewing something. So you're always thinking, how can I save money? Can I eliminate sewing something? It'll be less scratchy right here under your arm. Do you want it double seams right there? So I taped it together like that, so I can just trace it directly through all the way. Any questions so far? And then we don't want our facing to be too big, too bulky. That's always on our minds. So I'm gonna trace my stitch line, and then I can just add seam allowance to that. So there's my stitch line. So this is all gonna be my facing. This is staying, my neck is going to be covered completely, and I'm squaring off that edge right there. I want to use my armhole. This I'm tracing this entire thing first. This stitch here, this cut line here, is going to be what's unique for me, because we want to see that nice armhole finished. We're using our contour guide, and we're making this really nice style line, and the facing is going to help show it off. So, and then it's going to be a 2-inch facing, so that's kind of like the standard. I know some of us did it like an 1-inch facing. We were sort of cheating. 1.5 inches is kind of the smallest that you would have, but we cheated a little bit just so that we could make our prototype work on some of you. But 2 inches usually is a nice standard facing. So all I had to do after I traced my center back, then I measured down 2 inches and square it off. And then now I'm just literally doing 2 inches off my stitch line. So this is my stitch line, and I'm measuring down 2 inches all the way along the curve to get my facing. So when I get over here towards the armhole, that's where I'm going to start like coming up, because I don't want it to be so low. First of all, you don't want it to be close to your dart, And you don't really, this is where all that curve, your bust radius is like here, right? So we don't necessarily want that cutting into it. So we want to get this up here. So unless, you know, you have a reason, a real specific reason, we want to get it up there. So I'm going to go down like 4 inches here and square it off, and then just kind of bring in my, I think I'm even going to bring it up more. So drawing it in like this. So that'll be my facing, okay? Just like that. And then I'm gonna add my notches. So I wanna make sure these notches match, because the notches help me sew. This notch is gonna match to the notch on the body fabric. And this notch is gonna match in the back to the body fabric, right? Then I need my grain line. So this is on the fold. So I don't want to, you know, I mean, maybe you want a seam there for some reason. I don't want one. So, oops, it needs to be bent. Did anyone catch that? So you either have a bent grain line or a straight grain line. So if it's bent, it means it's on the fold. And then I'm going to label it. This is my, it's a full facing, but wait, first it's halter top, list what it is, the style, and then the part, and then the size, and cut 1. So now all I have to do is add my seam allowance and cut it out, and the notches. So seam allowance is 1/4 inch on, you know, and if you're like really, if you can eyeball it, you can just start eyeballing it. You can cut it by eyeballing it. You don't have to do that. I'm gonna smooth out my curve a little bit, just true it up so that it's a little bit more defined. And then after this, all that's left is the strap for this design. So again, like some of you I noticed are doing something different. Just check it with me if you're doing something different. Otherwise, everyone else is just doing this with the strap. And if you need help sewing that strap in, if you don't know what to do, like next Wednesday, that's a good time to ask those questions. So try to get some of the work done over the weekend. I know it's a holiday, but a little bit of the work done. I wasted all that paper. Oh well. So you can ask questions. So only do this if you know that you can eyeball it, but it saves a little bit of time. So the strap is pretty, oh, this is 1/4 inch. So 1/2 inch on the shoulder, 1/4 inch on the neck, 1/4 inch here, and 1/4 inch here. It's literally determining how long you want the strap to be. So if you guys want to have a shorter strap for some reason than what I have, I guess you could. I think mine is 30. So the back's gonna have a 1/2 inch seam allowance. And then this is there's no seam allowance on the front because it's on the fold. So I'm just gonna cut straight on there. And then I'm gonna have a 1/4 inch seam allowance here. So, and then if you guys wanna finish it, the edge of your facing on the overlock, you can, or you can just leave it raw. I'm not gonna make you guys finish it, not for these muslin. For your final and your midterm, yes, everything should be finished. Anything you sew in fabric will be finished. So there's my facing and the notches. So make sure that you guys mark your notches for me using either the notcher. I mean, I kind of almost want you guys to mark it in this marker, because it's hard to, this is for sewing the shoulder and the strap. It's hard for me to see the notcher sometimes. At least on mine, it's dull. All right, so there's the front facing. Now the strap. So this is 2 inches. So on my little sample that I made here, mine's only 1.5 inches, I think. Yeah. So I made my strap 1.5 inches, so it's flush, it matches perfectly. This is a little wider, so I decided I'm gonna try a little narrower strap, because a thicker strap is kind of hard to tie and get around your neck. So you gotta be thinking about how people are gonna use your garment. So I'm gonna make the strap 1.25 inches. I wrote that down here. So, and it's gonna just get sewn in, centered on the shoulder, and there'll be like a little edge, finished edge like that. So 1.25 inches. So literally this is so easy. This is like craft, right? You're just making a pattern for a rectangle, a long rectangle. Square it off. I'm looking for my sample. Yeah. So super easy. So this one, I think it is 30 inches. So I like this length, so I'm gonna do that again. And it has seam allowance. Oh, I did 24 1/4. So I'm just gonna do 24 just to make it even. So I'm gonna draw out my line. So I'm going to use my measuring tape to get my 24-inch. I don't want to waste too much paper this time. So here to here. And I'm going to have to cut this strap 4 times. And I decided to make it 1.25 inches wide. So to here. And then I'm just gonna add seam allowance all the way around, so 1/4 inch here. So I have to cut 4 because I need to cut 2 that I sew together so that it's finished. So this is 1, 2 sewn all the way together, and then the other one 1, 2 sewn all the way around. So I'm adding that. So it's a bit more sewing. It's definitely labor intensive with this particular strap design, but it's cute, I think, if you like bows and stuff. So I'm not. And you get some practice inserting that strap into the shoulder. It's kind of like if you were to sew a bag and insert the straps into the lining of the bag. It's the same technique. So I just added 1/4 inch here all around for seam allowance. I'm gonna actually add 1/2 inch on one end because that's the end where it's connecting to the shoulder. So my shoulder seam allowance is a 1/2. So I'm gonna make this 1/2 because this is gonna get connected to the shoulder. And it'll just be easier to remember. So there it is. And then a grain line is going to be just one long length grain line, because then it won't stretch as much. And then we're labeling it the same way we did the others. And this is the strap, and it's a size 8, and it's gonna be cut 4. That's really important. I forgot to put my name on it, but we'll label it on this one. Okay. And then cut it out. And notches. So this is a 1/2 inch, because that's the shoulder. So, and then again, all these pattern pieces you guys will rabbit punch and put them on your pattern hook and fold up the draft neatly and put it in a bag, either the sheet protector if it fits or the Ziploc. And then you get to test out your design. And so the notches that I have here, I want to have notches here. So actually, I don't want notches there. I want notches where my strap goes. So I do have this, because that's important. The sewer might easily get that mixed up. If you guys want to get one of these and use this, I recommend it. So my strap's gonna go like this, so that's where I want my notches to be. And if you do ever have a clothing line, like I totally recommend having, it's called a sew-by. When you work in the industry, you always, when you work with like an offshore factory, you always want to send not only your tech pack, but a sew-by, and that's your insurance. They see that, they know how to sew it. So if they see something finished, and that's exactly, even if it's like, you know, the pocket, how the pocket's sewn on to something, it's always helpful to have that. Or if you made a sample of what it is and you're sending that sample to the factory, then they can see how you actually sewed it together, and then there's less mistakes and everything. So those are my notches for the strap, and that's it. Any questions?